for receiving the recognition at the 2023 APVA, which is African Podcaster and
Whoop,
Voice
whoop.
Artist Awards. So,
Thank you.
congratulations for that. You've worked hard, and this is where you find yourself now. It is great to get those awards because it says, man, someone's looking, and meaning that you are doing a good job.
Yes, 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 definitely. Thank you very, very much. It's just so affirming, it
Mm.
validates that every morning when I wake up and I'm just like, let me do this podcast, even if it's just one person listening, that one person, that one person is enough.
Yes, indeed.
So it was absolutely wonderful winning podcast of the year, across the whole continent. That was a very big deal for me.
Yeah.
You can imagine, how difficult this entertainment industry,
Mm.
radio itself is just such a tight, difficult space. So to get that
Mm.
recognition was, it just said to me, you're on the right path. The right people are watching, the right people are
Yes.
listening to your show and are getting helped and healed by the work that you're doing. So I was just like,
Yeah.
thank you, God. I see you.
Yes. Amen. Oh man, Lebang, I'd like you to take us a little bit back, as
Mm,
to how all of this started, the philosophy of your life and how that led you to the path that you find yourself in now.
sure, the philosophy of my life. You make it sound so deep.
Well, girl, you can get as deep as you want.
Sure. I can only answer that question by saying, when you have a bit of a calling or when there's something inside of you that you simply cannot ignore, you simply cannot
Mm.
avoid, you can run as far away as you'd like from this very clear thing that you are meant to do whilst you are here on earth. And I
Mm.
realized very early that my gift is to heal, and my super trick is people, and my love for people and my love for broadcast and storytelling all mushed together equals my purpose. I'm
Mm.
such a huge believer in healing and in helping other people. And what I just didn't know was which medium was I going to choose to do that correctly and
Mm.
effectively. And yeah, so it started about 10, 15 years ago, where, I just started my career in entertainment,
Mm.
basically in the clubs of Joburg. And I found
Mm.
myself being the door girl at almost every single club, meeting people, greeting people, just always that girl at the door smiling from a very young age. So
Mm.
that allowed me to meet a lot of influential people who
Mm.
were in the right spaces. Very quickly, I found myself, working with a lot of promoters and event agencies, touring the country, bringing big
Mm.
artists into the country. Again, everything that I did was people based. So I was always good at that. And yeah, and then I got into promotions like most varsity students. We
Mm.
want to make a little bit of cash on the side. And
Of course.
I found myself I found myself doing promos, and I really loved it because this was me having to walk up to a complete stranger and having to convince them to buy whatever I'm selling.
Yeah.
And for the most part, it really worked until, my agent was like, dude, you should try radio. You're
Mm.
clearly good at people, and radio is that. It's this
Mm.
one-on-one connection. It's almost like a relationship with the listener that is so
Yes.
personal. You
Mm.
grow with the listener and you walk with them through life. So
Mm.
try it. And I said, you know what? I will. And then I applied for the YFM Academy in 2014, and I
Mm.
got accepted. I think like 50,000 people applied. I didn't have high hopes. I was like, God, wherever you take me, I'll go. But they called me back and they chose 10 of us. And eventually I got in, and I spent about 6 years at YFM, which is one of the biggest youth stations in
Mm.
Gauteng. I did the breakfast show, I did the drive show, I was co-hosting with everyone, again, meeting amazing people, healing people through storytelling, and
Mm.
just better understanding that people are people. We all have different life experiences, but we are all so alike.
Yeah.
We all just want to be loved. We all just want to be understood. And it's just the things that we experience in the world that make
Yeah.
us, that carve us and turn us into ugly people. But at our core, I
Mm.
don't think anybody is born, a bad person. It's the experiences
Absolutely.
that we go through. So
Mm.
after that, I moved into television production, which was really great because I was always interested in television, but From a young age, my mom would take me to auditions. So I'd always just be in front of the camera, doing things, performing. I'd done a couple of commercials in my youth and those kinds of things. So I've always been very well versed with the microphone in hand. That's all I've known. That's all I've done my whole life. But now I'm getting an opportunity to learn like what happens on the other side, like the camera stuff, the content production, when I'm programming, when I'm line manager, when I stage what. I'm like, oh, I love it here. So I did a couple of years of that. Again, met amazing people, worked at great places, did shows for ETV, Channel O. It was just lovely. And then one day I said, you know what, let me be honest with myself. I've fallen so deeply in love with radio. I've fallen so deeply in love with being able to make that connection with a person without having met them. And it's such a powerful medium, particularly in this country. And so I want to explore that more. So I went on a bit of a journey, of applying at a lot of different places. And I found myself getting a response from Gareth Cliff. And he said, listen, hey, I was like, okay. And he said, listen, you sound great. Come on over. If there's something in the system, then absolutely. I met his business partner, who also happened to be one of the founders of 702 back in the day. So my whole world was just like aligning. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm at the right place at the right time. And this was about 2-3 years ago. And I've been at Cliff Central since. And that's why I started my podcast, Life with Lebang. And in its early days, Life with Lebang really wasn't what it is today. I must be honest. During the inception of the show, what I would do is interview, people that are giving back to their communities. So like the Angel Network and just, Umama Wasekonen, who's got a soup kitchen, I'd be interviewing her. Those were the people that inspired me. And I knew that we need more of these good stories to be told. So after about a year of doing those kinds of stories, I think at that stage I was on like my third baby. I was just like becoming mommy of the century, and that I couldn't ignore that part. So I was like, how do I use everything I'm learning in this journey of becoming a mother to help other mothers and other fathers who are overwhelmed, who are scared, who just don't know where to start, because there's so many things and it's a lot. So I was like, I have to build a community of young parents who are really trying to be better than what their parents were to them. Young parents who are wanting to adopt modern ways of parenting, new styles, that apply to this day and age, that apply to a digital world, that apply to a world that considers, mental health and so many other things. And generally, the biggest barrier in that is we are African. How are you going to be raised by an African mother and father and then turn around and not raise your child like that? How dare you?
Yeah, exactly.
There's so many things, but kuning talk. So that was then just like my mission in life. I was like, I'm going to go out of my way to reach every single young parent in this country, in the world, globally, who is scared, who's confused, who's frustrated, who's depressed, who just doesn't know what to do. And my hope is just to be that voice that says, you know what, it's okay. It's a journey. Sometimes you'll mess it up and sometimes you won't. And when you won't, it's just a priceless feeling. So that has been my journey for the past 15 years. It's had its ups and downs, but to get to like year 15 and get an award, I was like, yes, I'm on the right path. I'm being seen. I'm trusting God with every single thing that I do. And I see him. I see everything that's, that I've been praying for. So I don't want to lie and say, oh, it's been easy. It's been fun. It's been this. No, it's been a lot, but it feels nice to almost know exactly what you're meant to do. I feel closer to my purpose, even though my purpose itself is always evolving.
Of course.
I'm happy to grow and evolve with it. Yeah.
Wow. So, Lebang, I love your authenticity and the fact that, you took your life experiences into your work in a sense, just that vulnerability that comes with that. It's huge. I want you to touch to positive parenting, and how does that look like in this day and age? I mean, you've already
Yeah.
mentioned all the factors, the fact that, if you are African and you're raising African children, how can you deviate, from the
Yay.
ways of abantu abadala, So, how
Exactly.
have you navigated that? The elements that are almost like against positive parenting and
Yeah, yeah.
a new narrative and a new way of parenting.
Sure, sure. I love that question, by the way. So like most things in life, it starts with self. The answer to how to be a more present and positive parent is that it starts with self. It's recognizing and understanding our history and saying, you know what, it's not that our parents didn't want to raise us well, they just didn't know any better. It's not that our fathers didn't want to be at home, they were just taken away from us by a system that was man made to break down the family unit. All the things that our parents experienced growing up, and therefore, you know, the ways that they raised us, it wasn't their fault. So, a big part of it is forgiving all of the more difficult parts of your own personal childhood, soul searching, for lack of a better term, and just coming to terms with, okay, this is how I was raised. This is what I liked. This is what I didn't like, but I'm not going to let it define me. And beyond that, I'm not going to use that as a blueprint to now raise my child because I'm able to identify what I liked and what I didn't like. So step one is just forgiving the history of our parents' generation and just accepting that it was not their fault. In most cases, they were just doing the best that they could.
Yeah.
And then the second step is then that soul searching element, which is, okay, cool, what kind of parent do I want to be? Because now I've identified the things that I don't want to experience or don't want my children to go through. So what am I going to do differently? Resources, like we've got access to so much information now that we live in a time where we can Google things, we can read books, we can get help, we can get answers, from people out there, and that can help us to then make better decisions about our parenting.
Yeah.
But in doing that research and getting help, it also becomes a big thing of the best way for me to do this is to know my child.
Yeah.
When you're raising your child, your children don't want anything other than to know who you are. Bafuna attention, the end. They don't want a lot. They don't want to go out every weekend. They don't want food and clothes. And a child just wants you. That's why from birth, whether you're a mother or a father, your child just wants to be it's your piece. They want to be on your chest. They want to be connected to your leg. You will always have a connection to your own parent. It doesn't matter how old you become. And that's just because of the nature of the relationship. So becoming an intentional, positive parent means becoming consciously aware of what you're doing. Being a parent is not something that you kind of just automatically know how to do just because you can give birth.
Yeah, come on.
It's not something that will just come to you. No, you have to be more intentional about how you're going to go about this task and this duty because you want to raise a king and a queen out of your children. So it's just making better decisions. It's being more well informed. It's seeking out help. It's admitting when you're not okay. And all of those things always go back to self. If you are completely happy with yourself and you're okay and you've got things under control for the most part, that energy will automatically feed into your children.
Yeah.
If you're depressed, if you're unhappy, if things aren't going well and you're not speaking to anyone about it, that same energy is going to trickle down to your kids. So you have to always check on yourself and say, okay, cool, am I okay? If the answer is yes, then that energy, your kids will automatically feed on it, because children are just such little precious beings that are like sponges. They suck everything that you do, everything that you say. They're constantly watching. They're not going to learn by listening to you. They don't listen. They are very good at not listening, but they are good at watching. They will look at, okay, what time does mommy come home? When mommy comes home, what does she do? Oh, daddy comes home, he just sits and watches TV. Mommy's straight in the kitchen. like that's the things that they're picking up on, and then that's the thing that they will end up doing because that's the norm for them. If they're growing up in a household where there's mommy and daddy, then it's okay, cool, this is what a normal household looks like. If they're growing up in a household where it's a single mom situation, for them that's what a normal household looks like. So being an intentional parent, for example, is speaking to your child and saying, look, baby, as you can see, the situation right now, it's just you and me staying together. Daddy isn't here for such and such and such a reason. That doesn't mean daddy doesn't love you less. Whatever the case is, being honest with your child is where the intention comes in. Having a relationship with your child is where the relationship comes in. Because, again, back to the African style of being raised, so many things were just kept as secrets. We were so scared to speak to our parents about certain things because we didn't have those relationships with them where we could just trust and just come forward and just be honest about how we're feeling. We'd either we'd fear getting reprimanded or whatever the case is. So many things that could have been solved by just having a conversation. I don't know how many years it took for my mom to finally just apologize to me. Like the words, sorry, my child, just were never going to come out of her mouth. But eventually she was like, actually, it's okay. I can apologize to my daughter. Just because I'm her mother doesn't mean I'm automatically always right. So it's just unlearning certain things. Again, being intentional about how you're going to raise your child, equipping yourself with the skills and the tools of how you're going to, maneuver certain situations. But at its core, it's working on yourself constantly, because your energy throughout this raising a child period is key in the kind of energy that you'll be spreading in the household and into the children. So it's like a two-way thing. It's like a two-way thing. It's like you're raising yourself and you're raising the child, essentially. Like everybody's just growing up, So it's a journey. It's definitely a journey.
Definitely. I think there's a lot of self-parenting that has to happen
Yeah.
as well, in the journey of you becoming a mother.
Mm.
Yeah. So, Lebang, now coming back to media and entertainment in the space that you're in, I'd
Yeah.
like you to, let us in as to the media landscape and how it looks like
Yeah.
currently in South Africa, and where are the opportunities for one to grow, to
Yeah.
evolve, when it comes to media. A lot of people have
Yeah.
taken the podcast route. Is podcast replacing radio? Of course, we don't want that to happen. But yeah, what are the trends, the things that are happening?
Yeah. So, like all industries, media is always evolving. It is always changing. It's always adjusting because it cannot become stale. However, due to the nature of this industry, and particularly like the South African industry, it's like, in high school, there's that group of cool kids who are all pretty, all from a rich family. They all like, they're wearing the latest fashion. Nobody can get in, not a single
Yes.
person. If you're not from there, if you weren't born into it, like that is how I can describe the media industry. It is
Mm.
traditionally a very tight, close-knit circle of a few that are in power, a few that are talented and get selected for the same jobs, and that kind of thing. But the good news is that as we evolve in the media space, so do the tools and the resources. So, for example, about 10, 15 years ago, when I was about 15, 16, I would go to audition for a role in Generations. So I'd go to this casting and cool, they'd be like, okay, cool, that's great. I'd get a call back, and now it's between me and Boiti, for example, which is actually a true story. So now it's between Boiti and I. They're like, okay, both of these girls are really good, but you know what? We're gonna go with Boiti for whatever reason. Boiti gets it. Bob's her uncle. Shab Gumnand. Now, what's happening is you'll go to a casting and they'll say to you, how many social media followers do you have? And if you've got less than about 5,000, you are automatically not considered. Now, there's pros and cons to that, but why I think it's a pro, it's because the evolution of the industry is that we come from a time where people chose you if they thought you fit what they were looking for. And it ended there. If you wanted to be on radio, they would say, okay, cool, we're looking for a girl who looks like this, dresses like this, and sounds like this. And they would hand pick you. And that was it. There was no other way to get in other than to know somebody on the inside or to attend auditions. Now, with this tiny little phone that I hold in my hand, you can do the work that won't lead to being selected as the only option of entry. If you put your heart and your soul into building your own brand using social media platforms, whether it's YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, whatever, TikTok, you name it, if you can tap into your market, find your niche, and build your brand in this tiny little phone, within the next 3 years, those people who were handpicking 20 years ago won't have a choice but to call you. They will come to you because abasana choice, like this person is doing so well online, we can't ignore them. Before, the levels of entry were non-existent. It was just going to an audition and getting selected. Now, if you're doing well enough online and you're using your resources and you're putting in the work, and they find you and they say, whoa, this person is making so much noise, we can't ignore them, then you get selected. So again, there's pros and cons to both. But for me, from where I'm sitting as somebody who's comes from the previous era and is now still operating in this era, I'm seeing younger kids just waltz into the game. They just like walk in. And you sit here and you're like, oh my gosh, I've been doing this for 15 years. Why are they ignoring me and going for these younger kids? These younger kids are working their asses off.
On social media, exactly.
Now, on social media, they are working so hard every day, making content, blah, 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 woo-hoo. And then there's always these online discussions about, it's so unfair. What about those of us who are really talented? And what about those of us who studied to be in media? We never get selected. Now they're just picking people based on social media following. I completely understand. I completely agree with that. I empathize with that frustration. However, if I was the director of a TV show and I'm looking for somebody to play the role of Umbali, and I look online and there's this kid who has consistently for the past 3 years dropped content, edited their videos, made sure the audio is proper, that person, when they come onto my production floor, they already have the discipline. They've already proven and shown that they are committed, versus getting somebody who still has to learn those things and you're still going to take a chance on them. And what if they, drop out, or what if they decide they actually don't like it? So it's almost like a cheat code, what we have with social media. If you use it correctly, you can make it work for you. You can prove to these decision makers that, look, I'm committed, I'm disciplined, I'm the guy, and I'm talented. But remember that hard work always trumps talent. It doesn't matter how good you are. If you're not going to work for it and prove yourself, then anybody with talent will get selected. So that's pretty much what it is.
I love that. That hard work is still the way to go. It doesn't mean just because I have a huge following, I just have to relax. But I guess the huge following is from the hard work.
And unless you've got a plug that sells followers, and if you do, please
hey, buying followers. Let's not get there. So earlier on, you spoke about just healing trauma and believing and understanding what you were meant to do from a very young age, and it had to do with people, it had to do with healing, and it had to do with creating spaces for people to tell their stories. What does storytelling mean to you?
Ooh. You see these questions where you have to stop and think. Yeah, those are the nice ones. What does storytelling mean to me? Storytelling to me means an opportunity to either save someone's life or break someone's life.
Sure.
It's the responsibility that comes with the words that are coming out of my mouth right now as you and I are speaking are so important, because There could be somebody standing on a bridge who has just reached the bottom of their lives. They are depressed. They don't know what to do. They are ready to give up. Whatever I say in that moment
Sure.
could be the words that that person needs to hear to say, hey, as in, let me not jump today. Let me just take a nap. I'll think about this tomorrow. Every single thing that you say and experience, right, can be packaged and passed on to another person to save their lives. Abantu bayasokola. People are constantly suffering. People are suffering from depression. When you look at the statistics of how depression and poverty are so closely linked, it is scary. When I think about, how many of my brothers and sisters are living below the poverty line in South Africa, I'm like, I've got work to do. And my work is to encourage you and to tell you that it's going to be okay. And when you're having a bad day, my voice is going to be the one that says, dude, I'm having a bad day too, but I made it to work. You don't have an excuse. Get up, go wash. Let's get this done. It's my job to find stories that will inspire you and will make you realize, my situation's bad, but it's not that bad. And if that person can do it, so can I. And so, storytelling is it's also understanding the evolution of it, right? So it took me a long time to understand why people go through bad things. Or let me not speak for people, let me speak for myself. It took me a while to understand why I look back on my life and there's still things that bring me pain, and I experienced really bad things and I got hurt a lot by really, really mean people. And while that was happening, I never understood. I was always questioning God, like, dude, why would you put me through this? You say that everything that I go through, you'll help me and you'll get me through it. But as I'm feeling it right now in this moment, it feels like crap. Why is this happening? I'm feeling so low. Only much later, whether it's months later or years later, does it hit me why I had to go through that. Because for whatever reason, God has this way of, like, you meet someone or you bump into someone or you just happen to hlangana with somebody who is going through a similar experience that you did, right? I'll use heartbreak as an example. So heartbreak sucks. Most people have been through it. It's not the vibe, Agukom Nandi, but you get through it. And later on, when you are past it, you meet somebody who's going through a heartbreak and they are crying, they're going through it. It's that phase where they are on the other side of it. You have gone through it. In that moment, you can say to that person, dude, I know exactly how you feel. Trust me, I was there. I was on the floor. I couldn't get up. I was finished. But today, I'm standing. I've got a job. I've got my life together. I'm remarried. I'm this, I'm that. Your life becomes a testimony for those people who are still yet to experience that hurt and that pain. And again, you may not understand it while it's happening, but so many times later on in life, I'm like, no wonder this happened to me. When I think about giving birth to my first son, this was 9 years ago. I was in a very toxic relationship. Yes, at that time I was young. I was just all over the place. Like, my life was in shambles. But I thought, I'm going to bring this child into the world anyway. And very quickly, that toxic relationship ended. But it was one of the worst experiences in my life. When I was going through that, knowing that I'm about to become a single mother, I didn't know what to do with myself. I'll be honest. I felt like I was broken and I felt like I was an embarrassment to my family, to my friends. I was shaming myself. This long list of things that just led to a depression very quickly. If I can tell you today, I don't even remember. I can't tell you what that feels like anymore, because now I am happily married. I'm with the love of my life. I've got even more children that are amazing. I am so happy. If you had told me 9 years ago that I was going to be happy, I was going to laugh at you because I just couldn't see it. And now when I meet single mothers who are broken and are this and are that, it is my duty to say to them, hey, dog, yes, I know that thing, but I promise you, the day you come out of it is going to be the day you just, like you put on a new clothes, you take off your old garment and put on a new garment, and that becomes that version of your new life. And you'll begin to embrace that. So I guess that's to answer your question, that is what storytelling is to me. It's taking your
Yeah.
experiences, understanding why you have these experiences spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, packaging them up, being intentional about the healing process so that you can take that healing and let others know that you can do it too. This doesn't have to be your life. You don't need to define your life by this one situation in your entire life. That's just one chapter. You can freaking flip the page and rewrite your story, honey.
I love that. You can flip the page and rewrite your story. Wow.
100%.
Storytelling. Family of 7 to 9 Cape Pulpit. Are we not privileged and blessed to be speaking to Lebang this evening? Lebang, wow.
Yes.
Congratulations. Now we know why you're an award winner.
Oh, is it all making sense now?
It's all making sense. Now we know why you deserve it. And once
Yeah.
again, congratulations for the award at the African Podcast and Voice Artist Award. May God truly carry you in this journey, extend your territory, and continue to use you as a mouthpiece for this generation and the next generation as well. I believe that the work that you're doing is necessary, it is crucial, it is needed, and thank you for using your life, in an authentic and in a vulnerable way to help others. It means a lot. Thank you so much for not denying the world of your beautiful gift, even those times that, it was difficult, but you continued, believing and knowing that this is your calling. So may you only experience great and lovely things and continue to thrive in this path that God has chosen for you. Blessings to you, sister. And thank you so much for committing to having this conversation. God bless you.
Yes. Thank you so much to the entire Yellow Mic audience. Thank you to Team Cape Pulpit. I'll make sure that when I'm down in the Cape, I pop in and visit.
Yes.
Thank you to Tula for giving me this opportunity to connect with you on this level. I think that's very special. And radio is forever. I'm gonna say it once and for all.
Woo-hoo!
Radio is for life.
Come on.
With all, podcasting is dope, and I do it and I love it, but radio is still the biggest medium in South Africa and in most parts of Africa. And the reason is just because it's an audio platform that everybody has access to. Not a lot of our brothers and sisters can read, but they certainly can hear. So they will hear whatever story you need to tell. And I believe everybody's a broadcaster. Everybody has some experience that they can share with their neighbor. So thank you, Ngabonga Kula. I appreciate this.
Wow. Have yourself an absolutely amazing evening. Thank you so much, Siswam. And in isiXhosa, we say Ntinga ntakandini. Tinga. Bye-bye. Thank you. Nkosi kakhulu. Bye. Oh, family, isn't it such a joy to have a conversation with someone that truly lives what it is that God has called them to do?